And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful session of the Grover Challenge. We have here with us our wonderful guest speaker, Dr. Richard. I'm also your host for tonight, Chinenye, and I have my co host here with me, Sharon. Please kindly introduce yourself.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kende Sharon. I'll be hosting with Miss Neye today. I'm welcoming everybody to tonight's live section. I'll be asking Dr. Richard some few questions and I'm going forth. So, Dr. Richard, thank you for joining us on this show. I'll be asking that what are the key factors farmers should consider when selecting vegetable crops to grow?
Well, the there are key factors. There are factors you want to consider, but the key thing is let's first look at the basics. You have physical appearance, and you can also look at us as human beings. If you want to present yourself as somebody who wears a particular dress, all you need to do is just to keep wearing that dress all the time, and people can say that's the lady who wears blue dress or red dress. So that's physical appearance. It first comes with your thought and your thinking. Same thing with the crops. When we grow crops, we see them appear in a certain way, and then we say, okay, this particular crop. What gives that appearance is something innate, something inbuilt, and that's the genetics of the crop. So there are two things now: what you see physically, that is in science called phenotype, and what is inbuilt in the crop that determines what you see, genetics, or broadly called genotype. Now, there's another part to it, the environment where the crop grows. So, at times you see a particular plant, say cocorus, that's the one we locally call the wedu. You could see it a bit tall, that's in terms of having long height, other times short. The same crop, the same genotype. Environment plays a role. So, if you grow crops and you don't give enough attention, that is management, provide good environment, then you get something different in what you see appearing. Three things come into play now: what you see, physical appearance, the phenotype, the genetics, the genotype, and what you have in the environment. So all of this come into play. So the farmer will need to consider each of these to know, okay, this is where I want to go. Now, in terms of genetics, that's the potential of the crop. Environment then enables how the crop can then express what can be seen and what goes. If now goes to business, how much of you do you want to get? When do you want to harvest? What market do you want to service? This is what the farmers will then begin to consider. What crop or what variety of a crop can give me this appearance? That is what I can then sell in the market. So you look at genetics of the crop. And I'm coming to genetics. If a plant, for example, will not do well when there's no rain, then you have to be sure if you don't have what we call a drought tolerant genotype, that is, can withstand low available moisture, then that is not what you want to consider. So you look at your environment. So look at where you are. How much of moisture have you got? For instance, now we are, of course, smarting into rainy season. So if you are going to put any crop in there, selecting anything, it has to be what is water loving, except you want to have a controlled environment where you exclude your crop or your plants from nature in itself, and then you provide its own environment for it. So key things: what is the potential of the crop? The genetics, that's what the farmers should look at. And then what market is available. It is key because you are not just growing the crop for yourself, it is to be sold in the market. So it has to be when the crop will be in high demand. And this is where it comes to play. You can love so many crops, but not all crop will sell at a particular time. There are other times when many people are growing the particular crop you want to grow, and then there's glut, and that affects the price in the market. You don't want to put effort and then you go sell cheaply. So this is the thing. So you look at them, the season, what's in demand, how much of that particular crop you want to grow is available. One good thing about that is that Some people will not want to grow vegetable during the dry time. I mean dry season. You know, that will be sometimes from October, November, for example, in our country, up until March or April, depending on the area where you are. If you're able to grow vegetable at that time, you have the high chance of making more money compared to if you just do that during the season. So, genetics, the season, and then the market. These are key things that the factors should consider when selecting vegetable crops in a crop enterprise.
Yes, sir, that is very loaded. Your market is very needed. Your environment is also very important when selecting any vegetable for your crop. Sir, so I'll be going to the next question, which says, how does agroclimate zoning influence the success or failure of crop selection?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I while I was speaking earlier, I talked about environment, and this is where environment comes to play. Now, agro means agriculture. Climatic has got to do with the climate, which is of course the weather condition of an area over a long period. So, and this you cannot change. You can't change the weather, for example. If it's going to rain for 10 days, there's nothing you can do about that because it's a natural phenomenon. You know, if you are going to have high candle power, that is high sun intensity, you can't do anything. I mean, in nature, if you are going to be in the sun, there's something you can do. So it then means that um, some categories, some areas, you don't put some crops in a particular time. And this is what matters here. If you are growing your crop and you don't want to harvest when it's going to be when it's going to be wet, you know, then you have to tailor your planting. And this selection point, you know, you have to tailor your planting to, okay, I want to harvest when it is dry. Tailor your planting so much so that your plant mature, your crop mature, and then you harvest when it is dry. Because you can't do anything to what will happen in nature, except again you want to go to a confined environment. The other thing is, if you are growing crops that are, for example, we need tomato, for example. If you have your tomato in nursery, I mean, within 3 weeks, not beyond that, you are ready to take your plant to the field. In terms of transplanting, you expect that after a month, you should be flowering. Another month, you are ready to harvest. If there is, of course, will be drought in that period of time, and then you don't have irrigation, you don't plan yourself and then set yourself to fail right from the beginning. So you've got to understand what environment is available to you. And this not management is about your agro-climatic zone. And in Nigeria, we've got the savannas. You know, you have the southern Guinea, northern Guinea, all differentiated by the amount of rainfall you get at different time. You've got the Sudan and the Sahel that is drier, and of course coming down south, you've got the rainforest and then the desert transition. So all of these have got to be considered. How well will my plant do well in terms of sunlight, in terms of intensity, how much of rainfall? This is what has got to be considered. The good thing is that there's a map that actually also designated Nigeria and the state into different zones that I've mentioned. Just about understanding how much of rain will be available at this point, how much of sunlight is actually also possible. So this will be considered before you begin to talk about what crop you want to grow or what job type you want to select. Otherwise, it's a recipe for failure. And this is what we're guarding against because participants in the Groove Challenge. I mean, what I'm saying here is just to whet our appetite. We've got enough curriculum and training piece that actually will expose participants to details of what I've mentioned earlier in terms of what to pick and which variety or which crop will grow best in a particular agroecological zone in Nigeria and beyond. Thank you.
Yes, sir, that is very interesting. So what I got from this was that we need to plan very well before you plant a crop. And also, we have a lot of or information loaded. If you want to learn more, you can visit growveg.leveragefresh.com to register for GrowVeg Challenge 3.0, which is starting May 19. The onboarding is starting May 19. So you still have the chance and the opportunity to register for GrowVeg Challenge 3.0. All you need to do is to visit growveg.leveragefresh.com to register. So moving on to the next question, as Dr. Richard has explained to us that we need to plan very well before you start farming, before you start or before you consider any selection for your vegetable crops. Your environment is needed. So I'll be asking doctor that, can you explain the differences between open field and protected cultivation, that is greenhouses, in crop selection?
Well, thank you, because this is, of course, an emerging area, and some persons have reservation about protected cultivation, or what we call confined or controlled environment cultivation. Well, simply put, open field, protection, confined environment, whatever you call it, it's all about cultivation. You see in the genetics, like I mentioned earlier, every crop will do well, whether it's and there are no special variety for for confined environment or for open field. This key is just management, and the key difference is just that. Now I mentioned earlier that you grow crops. Yes, it's just like if you get into your room and the room was dark. If you want light in there, all you need to do is just, if there's a switch, you just switch on. You just hit the switch, and then light comes. You only see light in the room, but something happens within micro milliseconds that give actually the light you have seen. And in nutshell, you've got between the switch and your light source. If you are using a wired source, of course, you've got a connected cables in there. You've got wire, that is a conductance, and then depending on resistance of your wire, depends on how much you can carry. But the key thing is that current travels. So that's the process. Once you put on the switch, current travels, and then you get light. Same thing with crop. You put your crop in there, you begin to see the green leaves. If you are going to harvest fruit, then you just see the fruit. There's a process too that underlines what leads to every stage. Now, this process for plants is basically photosynthesis. Now, the key difference between open field and confined environment is how much of control do you have over this process. Open field, like I mentioned earlier, when I said if it was going to rain or there's going to solve this amount of sunlight, there's something you can do. That is if you are growing your crop just in an open field under nature. Now, open field doesn't necessarily mean you are actually putting the maybe your crop down into the soil, because you could decide to also put them in germination bags, or in having planting medium and just have some pots and other, if that is what you want to do. If you desire to sterilize your soil and then have them in pots and all that, you can do that. You can also have some planting bags if you don't want interaction between the root and the direct with direct soil. If you want to have a bit of control, so it depends on how much of control you have on this process. Now, with the photosynthesis, the key thing is you've got the left hand side of that equation. It's just about CO2 and water, and then there's light, and then what we're happy to get is the starch, and then, or if you like, glucose, and then oxygen on the other side. How much of control do you have on the left hand side of that equation is what determines if you are having protected or if it is open field. So if it's open field, of course, you expect rain, sunlight, all comes from nature. Then you have little control, like I mentioned. If you're in a confined environment, you provide everything for the crop, including light. Yes, you can use your fluorescent light. You can of course then determine how much of water would your plant get at a point in time. You then have mineralized, of course, minerals that's already in solution form. And then there's just, you have your venturi that, of course, then transport moisture and nutrient straight to your crop. It's efficient, and it's effective. And the truth is that you could have over 10 hectares, yes, of confined growth. But the key thing is also that how much of carbon dioxide, because I mentioned earlier about the left hand side. On that left hand side, carbon dioxide is very important. How much do you actually want to supply? I don't want to say it's expensive, but if you can invest in that, of course, it's worthwhile. The good thing for participants in global challenge is that we have expertise in this area as well, so it will be discussed in detail, and then of course the different steps that are required, and then also ways to even cut costs and reduce costs, because you can actually do some improvisation around, even if you are doing a confined environment growth. So basically, it's just about how much of control have you got in terms of input. Is it just in the open? Are you relying on nature? Because even in nature too, if there was shortage of inundation of water, for example, you could then of course also apply artificial supply in form of irrigation. But in confined environment, it is all through irrigation, and then you may not have the chance of having hand application of fertilizer. It's just all automated. But if you also want, you can also go the other way around. So there's a lot of balance into it. But the key thing is just that one aspect relies so much on nature. The other side, you are taking your destiny and everything about the plant right into your hand, from the little thing as low as water up to even carbon dioxide that will be needed for photosynthesis. So that's just the key thing. And the other thing I mentioned is that there are no special varieties or genotypes for open field or for greenhouses. It's just about management, and then from experience, you get a whole lot if you control growth. And it has nothing to do with maybe it's LD or not. It's still the same crop. You are just simulating and providing what nature will give artificially, which is of course efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. We are grateful for this opportunity to have this section with you. Just like you said, management. Very well. I'm very sure that management is very, very needed in managing your crop. You need to manage your crop well so that they can do well. So I'll be moving to the next question now before I hand over to my co-host. So for me now, I'll be asking that, what role does soil type and fertility plays in determining what vegetables to grow?
Yeah, thank you. And this is again is an offshoot of the environment part. I mean, let's not forget how we started about the what you can see, the phenotype, about the genetics, and of course then the environment. So earlier we have talked about the climate, or if you like the weather. That's one component of the environment. And then when it comes to soil, that's the edaphic area of environment, because of course you have temperature, humidity, and all that. There's a medium, of course, that the plant will grow. Now this becomes important if you are an open field, or even if you also be on the field or you want to use a planting bag, because this then involve soil. Now, this is the home. You look at us again as human being. If you were to get a good sleep, I mean, you don't want a room that is like suffocate you. You want a room well ventilated. You want a neat room. You want a bed well made. And then you also want the bed to support. I mean, your back when you lay down. I mean, just to get good sleep, and also good pillow to support how you lay, and your posture, and all of that. Now, the same way for plants, when you talk about soil, that is the home of the plant. Apart from how much of air, how much of light, how much of nutrient can you get, it is where you are putting the soil for the plant, for example. So, soil type. You don't want to plant in a rocky area, otherwise there's no anchorage for the root. There's no place, because if you have hard pan, the root does not have hammer to begin to knock off your hard pan. So you need and that's why most vegetables, of course, will need fine soil, well pulverized, so that the root can easily penetrate. I mean, and the roots are so lovely. The roots particularly, they're delicate. They just require a good place to continue to, so that they can go down. If you are growing, for example, crops with taproot, then when I want to go deeper, you want the soil to be well pulverized. If that's not provided for the root, then there's the plant goes nowhere. Whatever genetics you have got, and you now see somewhere again the importance of this G plus E that we began with actually give you a good phenotype. Now, of course, if the soil is also well drained, it means you don't have waterlogging condition, because again, when you have too much of moisture, of course, in that rhizosphere, or if you like the root zone, then you have less amount of air, and again, this of course will suffocate your plant. So all of these, the texture, the type of the soil plays important role in what success you are after. I'm going to talk about fertility. Yes, that's abundance of nutrient. If you grow your crop in a marginal soil don't respond to anything. Whatever amount of fertilizer you put, you get nothing. So you want a fertile soil where that is rich enough with soil fauna, and of course soil flora, and of course good beneficial ultra beneficial bacteria to your root. So importantly, the soil is a home that provides support for plants. So you want one that's actually favorable to the good condition of course your crop. So this is key. And a very good example again is I like to give the example. You don't want to grow carrot, for example, in acidic soil. You don't harvest carrot by plucking. Carrot is just by the root. So if you and you want, you know, a long straight carrot, I mean erect and then going like that, looking nice. You don't want to go to the market and then you see carrot looking like an Union key. I mean, that has this zigzag thing. You're not going to buy that. So if you put carrot in an acidic soil, that's what you get, for example. That's what you get. So just the screen. Again, in the Grover Challenge 3.3, like we had in 1.2 and 2.0, we have the well dedicated aspect to soil texture, to soil properties, and how even soil can be improved to support plant growth. All of these are what we have in our teaching modules to support our participants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Uh, I would like to use this opportunity to welcome everyone who have joined us this session. You're all welcome. Thank you for, yes, Abel, thank you so much for joining us. Highly educative. Thank you. We have Dr. Bidemi as well. Thank you for cheering Dr. Richard on. He says, well done, sir. Thank you so much. To all of you who have taken out your time to join us. We have, if you are just joining us now, we have Dr. Richard Olayiwola talking to us about crop selection strategies for vegetable farming. And he's also one of our GrowVeg instructors. So if you've registered or you're yet to register, he would be one of the instructors that will put you through. So let us remember to visit growveg.leveragefresh.com to register for GrowVeg Challenge 3.0. So thank you once again, Dr. Richard. We really appreciate the time you've taken to join us this live session. So my question for you is on market demand. So how important is market demand when choosing crops for vegetable production?
Yeah, thank you for this important question, because like we have said, one of the days when farming is just for the sake of farming. I mean, when you just put it in your backyard and say, okay, I can just fetch a vegetable there. Now it's real business. And you don't want to create a service that nobody wants or nobody is demanding. That's the key thing. So market demand is very important. And then we have had this discussion. The best bet around is just to check up and check up on market survey. What's the market index? Yeah, this might look like this is big English. Market index, how do we go about this? You can simplify it, you can localize market index. If you go to, I mean, the way we are structured, if you look at Ibadan, for example, there are more than 5 to 6 major markets. I said major. Now, there are other markets too I would say minor, but not as big as those major ones. And even on the streets, you have people selling produce and all that. It's about you just taking notice of what are people selling. What people are selling in your area is what people need in that area. I tell you, marketers won't sell what is not needed. That is what you want to grow. If you want to go to specific, you again go to the market and just ask questions. I mean, you can just pretend to say you are buying what from the vendor, and just ask. So if you buy this, how long does it take you? I mean, to clear your goods. If you have this produce, for example, that's what gives you an idea of what is needed. Because the key thing is, if you grow what is not required or what the market does not need, you eat it yourself, and then you don't want to spend millions of naira just for you to consume. What are you consuming? You want to actually spend your resources, your energy, your talent to make produce, harvest them, and then sell, not only to break even, but to actually make profit. To do this, it is important we are only growing what is required. That is where season comes into mind. I mentioned earlier, if you grow any vegetable at all during the dry time, when most people don't want to do it, you are starting to get premium price. Good example for cucumber, for tomato. You could have more than 500% increase in your price just between different seasons. You know, if you are harvesting your tomato around April or March, the kind of sales you're going to make will be different from if you're harvesting and selling sometimes in June, for example. What you will get if you are harvesting, for example, in November or December, cannot be compared in terms of how much you sell to when you are harvesting just right in the rainy season. And this is about how much of it. So understanding this can then also help farmer or grower to structure what plant to grow. Now the business aspect and how to understand the market also forms an integral part of what we have in our modules for participants in GrowVeg 3.0. We've tried this in 1.0, we went to 2.2, 2.0, and now because of the success that we recorded in 1 and 2, we are now in 3. And again, we continue to fine-tune this module based on feedback from participants and also from what we see around to meet the needs of our people. Because the driving force behind the Grover Challenge is just to ensure that we extend knowledge from research to our people so that we can grow and then actually feed ourselves. So we continue to fine-tune, we continue to improve and the modules to meet this demand. We just want more people because it's about it's a multiplier effect. Train one, somehow train all. This can then be replicated because the idea is whatever you learn, you replicate in a challenge form, like just compete with your contemporaries, and then if you are like the champion, you also get a prize for being that. And then people see you showing this on social media, they get the idea, and then we're expanding this knowledge across board. So to summarize that, market demand is key. Season plays an important role because you do not want to grow just for you to eat. I mean, what are you eating? You want to grow to make money.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We've learned a lot from you tonight, and we really appreciate all your tips. We also have Dr. Abidem cheering you on and saying that Dr. Richard is loaded. Yes, he is indeed, and I'm sure viewers here are appreciating the answers he's giving us all our questions. Then Leverage Fresh also says, Dr. Yes, he is indeed. Thank you so much for all your comments. Thank you, Mr. Tundi, as well. Yes, everyone is clamoring that it's loaded. So we want to learn more from you, Dr. Richard, and that's why I have two more questions to ask you tonight. So the next question I have for you is concerning the seeds used for vegetable farming. So, what's your opinion on using local versus hybrid or imported seed for vegetable farming?
Well, and this takes us back to the first thing I mentioned about genetics. and this is where this one would address that. Well, the key thing here is about what is the source of the genetics. Is it local? Local will mean, of course, if the crop is not native to that area, you don't say it's native to that area. But you can have some genotypes, or if you like, varieties that are more like traditional to the area. And if the variety has actually interacted with the environment in that area, you can then say, okay, this is a local type. Now, amongst the local too, if there's been what we call selection effort, if there's any form at all, which of course farmers do anyway, because you see farmers saving seed, they pick, that crop has done well this year. This particular has done well. I'm taking the seed, and that's what I want to plant the following year. Even though it's a mixture of all of things, because the gene pool may not be as the integrity in terms of how pure it is. Maybe the farmer may not know that, but it keeps on selecting and picking what is best. So the point I'm trying to make is that even amongst local varieties, you could actually have locally improved that are actually adapted. Now, but the key is between the local one, if it is improved, and the hybrid type, because of course you can't really have a local hybrid. You are going to hybrid is it's it's a deliberate development of a progeny from two different parents. So you can have one parent, parent A, and then parent B, make a cross, and then what you have there is just a hybrid. Just like each of us we are to, of course, to our parent. Now for the hybrid from two parents, if it's got if it's specialized, what I mean specialized is that if it's developed for a particular condition, maybe resistance to disease, maybe for high yield, maybe to be early maturing, maybe to have some features that of course are needed for that particular area. With imported seeds, well, imported can also be over there where it's coming from, could also be local, and of course it can also be improved. It depends on what is coming. What is important is what we call adaptation. You don't necessarily bring what is imported and say it will do well where you are. You need to understand the postcard. Every material that is obtained commercially, on the sachet, something is written there, telling you what soil is required, what condition is required in terms of generally in terms of management. So before you purchase that, you want to be sure if this is what your environment can support. For example, tomato plant that does very well in during winter in, say, in England is not one you want to grow during summer in Nigeria, because if it's live vernalization, loves cold temperature, you can't offer that in nature. I mean, naturally in Nigeria, because even if you go to the upper plateau, you don't get 10 degrees in upper plateau. And if that tomato plant is used to getting 2 degrees or even less, how do you cope with that? So what is key is it's about adaptation. So you would have local varieties who of course do fine. If you are going to bring what is imported, be sure that it's a crop that of course would do well in your environment. So it's about response of that genetics to the, and the other thing is what actually would it offer. Now, the other big thing about hybrid and if you want to say maybe open pollinated variety OPV is recycling of seed. If you are going and if you know that you got an hybrid, maybe F1 or whatever level of generation it is, you are not likely to be able to recycle such seed, because when you have your F1, that's when you have the highest heterosis, that is the vigor that outshines the parents. And then if you decide to recycle, you would have reduced that performance by half. And then the worry is that you still then give the same resources to what you have recycled, and then you get less. So all around this is just about adaptation. But listeners and viewers should not be wary of spending good money on quality seed, on quality genetics, because you are surely going to get. It's just about like nutrient conversion ratio. How much does a particular genetics respond to the nutrients you are offering to the environment you are offering it. Now, if it is improved to give you good yield, then you cannot compare a locally adapted material to that. If it's an area where a particular disease is endemic and the local type has been doing well, you stick to your local type, and then breeders can then look at it to see how we can integrate what is making the local one, to be adapted to that disease condition into what we have improved, and then give us another improved type, so that we then can have a genotype that, of course, will still combine the high yield with adaptation, or to still be to thrive to what is endemic in that area. So my key opinion is that any of these will be fine, depending on the condition you found yourself. But what you must look at is adaptation. Is my crop, my variety adapted to my area? You don't want to invest so much amount of naira importing seed that, of course, we do not do well in your area, for example. So that's my take. Depends on your condition.
Thank you so much, sir. So talking about, you mentioned about ensuring that the crop is the right one for the season. That takes me to the last question I have for you tonight. So we know we have participants that have already registered for the Grow Veg Challenge 3.0, starting May 19th. And we understand that different crops for different seasons, we need to also plan accordingly. So, what are the vegetable crops that are most suitable for the next Grover Challenge coming up May 19th? What do you think are the most suitable crops to focus on for this season and region?
Yeah, thank you. The good thing about the month of May and June in Nigeria, whatever it's your agroecological zone, maybe Sudan, maybe Sahel, maybe Northern, maybe Southern, maybe the transition forest, dry savanna, May is either onset of rainfall or rainfall season. So it will mean that since we're beginning in May, all of us in that country, and then even if you're outside, you're likely to be having wetness at that time. Means we find ourselves in during the raining season, which is a good thing. Because if you all you just need to do, if you are going to, is just supplement rainfall if it's available at the time. So now, for us at that point, what comes to mind? Our lovely one, tomato will be good. Tomato loves water and will do well during the raining season. And of course, there's a cucumber that of course does fine too during the raining season. Watermelon too is an option. Just a bit wary of abortion if the water becomes too much. So I'll not so much recommend that at this time. But okra is another thing, and because I was just thinking about, I've been thinking about okra for some time now. That's one vegetable plant that grows anywhere in Nigeria, and actually is eaten by every culture in Nigeria. Just taking a look at that. It's very important in the north. Its importance in south, whether south or southwest or southeast, cannot be quantified, because you have it in different form of soup. Where we have bolus, like our solid materials and all that, swallow, you need whatever can give you this mucilaginous property to help it go down your throat. So and okra plays key role there, as much as well as kokoro. So all of these are plants that can do well. Around this season. But again, like I mentioned, the season is key. You also do what I call that mini market survey. All people buy from you. You won't say, it's raining season and okra will do fine. If at that point nobody's buying okra in your market, you don't want to grow it. So and of course, this is like I mentioned earlier. This is what we are going to tailor down. Around the participant, because we will of course ask them when we begin to have this interaction. Okay, go to your market. Tell us what is really Like if you want to use in vogue in your market now, what is mostly available? What are the market women saying would of course would sell at this time? And that is what of course you want to focus on. So when we have this list, we then begin to say, okay, which one would then do well during this time. But the good thing is that every crop we do fine during the rainy season, but the worry is just how much of you can get, because if the flood becomes much and you are getting so much of wind, it can then also increase the incidence of abortion. And once it's aborted, because you lose your flower. Once you lose the flower, then you're also losing, of course, your produce. Except for living vegetables anyway. The pumpkin, the amaranth, the celosia, and also cocoros, of course. Those ones don't worry themselves. You just see them so green, particularly if you give enough manure or nutrients, see them so green and so luxuriant. I mean, and then you're happy to just take that to the market. So I mean, so it's just all fine. So those key crops that I mentioned, tomato, cucumbers, I mean, will be really very good. And then I'm also going to give a look at okra that actually will sell and then is taken actually in every part of the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So, our upcoming participants can look forward to planting uh, tomatoes, cucumbers, watermelon, maybe okra. So, for those who are viewing this live session, if you know you have always had interest in learning how to grow tomatoes, cucumbers, watermelon properly, and okra as well, you can look forward to learning that come May 19th. So if you've not registered, you can still register. It's not too late. You just need to visit GrowVeg as displayed on the screen, growveg.leveragefresh.com, and you'll be able to register for GrowVeg Challenge 3.0. Remember, it's happening May 19th. And time is counting down. But we look forward to having you all. And you can see that we've also heard from one of the Grow Veg instructors, Dr. Richard Olayiwola. Thank you so much once again, sir, for joining us on this live session. And thank you for giving us an eye opener on how to better care for seeds and how to also select and plan accordingly. And also marketing, doing our market research as well. So there's a lot in store that we've learned tonight. So if you missed from the beginning, you can always go back to the Leverage Fresh Facebook page or Dr. Abidemi's Facebook page and watch the playback. We've come to the end of this live session. Thank you, Sharon, for the wonderful
Thank you.
co-hosting, and thank you to Dr. Abidemi for giving us this platform. Thank you also, Dr. Richard, for also joining us on this live session. Thank you to all our viewers as well for taking out the time to participate in this live session. I do hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you all once again. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.